Hi everybody, this is Mary Moybiel, the Autistic Astrologer with Mary Moybiel Healing Services. If it's your first time here, thank you for being here. Be sure to subscribe to my page. You can find me on social media at Healing Services or the Autistic Astrologer on Facebook and on YouTube. So today we're going to talk a little bit about just the basics of a natal chart, some of the basics about astrology, and it's so that when you watch some of my other cosmic updates, you can have a better understanding about how it's relating to your life and just an overall better understanding of astrology. One of the things about astrology that gets lost very often is that it's not what you read in the magazines. It's not your horoscope. There's so much more to astrology. One of the things that I'm working towards and fighting for, and if you know much about me at all, I am very into tearing down different stigmas that don't serve the populations that they stigmatize. One of those things is around astrology. There are things known about each of the zodiacs, right? We talk about Scorpio and there's things that come to people's minds. I've heard so many people say like, I'll never date a Gemini. Those are things that I used to say too before I understood how in-depth astrology was and how you can utilize it in different ways, right? So each person has a specific natal chart. So let's start there. A natal chart or a birth chart. Each person has one that's specific to them, the moment that they were born. And to find it, you can get a free natal chart of your own. In my group and when I work with people, I use astro.com and I send them to astro.com for that chart. That is the one that I use. So in my group, the Autistic Astrologer, you will want to get your chart from astro.com, or you can get it through me or book a session with me at any time. But that's where I would start. And then you can get a ton of information on your natal chart for free online. So you can start with that. Or you can just have an idea that it is much more in depth than what you read in magazines. So most people know their sun sign. So for me, I am a Pisces sun. However, my chart is ruled by Saturn, which rules Capricorn. So Neptune rules Pisces. So even though I have a lot of Pisces, my entire life I would read the magazines based on Pisces because that is my sun, or what some people refer to as your star sign. It's probably the one that you know. If you only know one thing about your zodiac, it's probably your sun sign. So although the sun sign is very important, it is not the be-all end-all of astrology for you. There are a lot of people that have their sun sign and they don't resonate with it at all because the other pieces of their chart bring in such other energies that aren't their sun energy. So every planet will hit people's charts differently and bring in different energies. And then there's also what we refer to as houses. So in your natal chart, you're going to have three main things that we look at, which is going to be the planets, the zodiacs, and the houses. So each person has Scorpio energy. Each person has Sagittarius energy. Each person has each piece of the zodiac and each planet in their chart. It just depends on where the placements are, how it shows up for them. So that's one of the things that I see most often misunderstood is the fact that astrology is so in depth. And so reading a magazine about your horoscope doesn't really make sense if you really understand astrology. And so if you notice, I try not to spread a lot of the, Aries, and then it has all these different things because it really is different for each person depending on where Aries falls in their chart. And by sending out these blanket, this is what Aries is, it's a disservice to astrology and how detailed the information is that comes with each person's natal chart and astrology in general. Okay, now I'll get off my soapbox about that and we'll talk about the chart a little bit more. So again, if you pull up your chart on astro.com or anywhere, the first things you want to look at are the zodiac signs, the planets, and the houses. I'm going to do separate videos on each of those, but in the meantime, if you're interested, you can find a ton of free information on YouTube, on Google, all over the place, or you can ask me in the comments and I can give you quick answers. But just an idea to get you started with the basics of a natal chart. There's a lot to it, right? So that's kind of my point of this video is if all you know is your sun sign, that's fine, but just recognize that there's so much more that goes into it. So if you read about your sun sign and it doesn't resonate for you, it's not necessarily like, I don't want you to write off astrology, because there's so much more to it. And it probably just means that your chart is ruled or has a lot of energies that aren't your sun energy, which gives you a lot of insight about your life and validation and understanding about things that you have felt in your life. And astrology can be a great tool for that, and a great tool for kind of understanding yourself on a deeper level if you're working with your own personal natal chart when we talk about astrology. When I talk about the cosmic updates, I'll talk about, like, for instance, in the the new moon eclipse in Sagittarius that happens the 14th of December, we are in 2020, it is at 23 degrees Sagittarius. So on your chart, you're going to find in your chart where Sagittarius is and 23 degrees, among other things, but this is just an example. So each person will have 23 degrees Sagittarius in their birth chart, okay? Each zodiac is 30 degrees, and it makes up the full circle. So when we talk about transits, it's going to hit every single person. But if you have Sagittarius in your first house, that's your house of self. So it's going to be reflected in things about yourself, your self-expression, your physical being. Okay, if you have it in the fourth house, then Sagittarius in the fourth house for you is going to have to do with your roots, your foundation, your family, the way you were nurtured. It may have to do with your maternal figure. These are all things that have to do with the fourth house in your natal chart. And so when I talk about the transits and when I talk about how they're hitting your charts, just because you don't have a Gemini sun or a Gemini moon or a Gemini rising, which are referred to as our big three, just because you don't have Gemini in those big three doesn't mean you don't have Gemini in your chart. So that's the most important thing I wanted you to learn in this video, is that it is very in-depth, it is very detailed. Astrology, somebody can study their natal chart for years and years and years and continue learning more and digging deeper. It is so in-depth. And so if you read things about your sun sign and they don't make sense to you, it's an invitation to look at your natal chart and figure out what it is that those energies are coming through as, and kind of finding a different way to connect to them and connect to that. So if you're interested in knowing more or having me take a look at your natal chart or booking a session with me at any time, you can find me on social media at Healing Services or at the Autistic Astrologer on Facebook and on YouTube. I'd be happy to help you anytime. Please be sure to join us in our group, the Autistic Astrologer, where we'll talk more about this. And again, if you want to find a free chart, read a little bit about it, I advise everybody to go to astro.com. It's the most consistent and the most concise that I have seen at this point. So thank you for being here. I hope that you have a great day, and we'll talk soon.